All right, so this is really important. If you're ever stuck in a design situation where your design looks really lame, there's something out of the ordinary with it, and you can't quite put your finger on why it's looking so strange and not very good, this right here will help you out. More than likely, 7 times out of 10, this might be what solves it. So what we're going to talk about right now is size variation tactic. That sounds weird when you say it out loud. Varying the sizes of your objects. Let me put this into perspective. Okay? Right here, let's go ahead and I'm going to do a quick example. First of all, let me mention this. Size variation tactic is simply having the object, but having it in different sizes within the scene. And this can happen with a whole entire scene. This can happen with just character armor. It can happen with all sorts of different examples. So we're going to go over 3. First of all, we're going to start with this very simple village scene so I can show you exactly what I'm talking about right now. So I'm going to start with a rock. And by the way, this is XYZ grid. It's a very basic grid to kind of put it into 3D space so you have something on the canvas. And I'll go over how to make one of these and use them a little bit later. But right now, let's focus on this. So erase my tiny little letters. So imagine this. We had a building. Let's go ahead. And okay. There's our building. And imagine we keep it the same size. We have the same version over here. We keep the same size. We have the same version over here. That one looks like it, I don't know. It looks like it melted a tiny bit. Let me try that again. And we have the same building for this village. And we have the same building once, twice, 3 times. That's the same size. Now, if we make one small modification, everything changes. And let me put this in perspective. So I'm going to draw another rock. This time we're going to have that same building. So let me go ahead and draw that very similar building right here. Okay. That. And it goes down to that point right there. Okay. And there we go. So let's go ahead and make a larger version of it. So we could have the same building right here. Okay. So we have the same one, same stuff like that, showing up. And let me go ahead and change that slightly. Much larger. And what if we had a smaller version over here? We had a tiny little one, tiny little hut house like that, and maybe this would be a pathway that goes up to this point right here. Because this is a rock, as I mentioned. It has no form to it at all, so let me add a little form to it. And let me go ahead and add that right there. And what if we added another one, like this up here? Ding, ding, and ding. As you could tell, just by modifying the sizes, of these little boring buildings over here, we have made it dramatically different. So let me go ahead. I'm going to sharpen out the edges a tiny bit, as we did. And as I mentioned, you want to sharpen out the edges because it allows everything to pop out more. It allows you to have, makes it a lot less sloppy looking, looks a lot more refined, and it allows things, the lines at least, to be separated from each other. So you can kind of tell where things and objects are without painting it. So let me go ahead, draw this, ding, ding, ding. And just like that, we have a few different buildings with a few different sizes. Go ahead and add a window. Looks like birdhouses actually. Like that. Pretty solid, right? So usually when drawing villages, trees, any kind of object where there's a bunch of them, you want to vary their sizes a lot, right? Because if you don't, you're going to have something lame like this, which looks kind of boring. I ought to just quickly outline these guys as well. I should give some love to these guys. Okay. So you have these guys, same size, almost the exact same scene, with the exception that the sizes are the same. Just by changing the sizes, we change the entire scene. There's a lot more interest, a lot more interesting things going on here, and we didn't even design anything on here. We didn't add any fancy sculptures or anything else like that. These are literally just as simple as birdhouses, okay? So let me go ahead and let me apply this to a different scene, just as one more quick example, okay? Let's put it also on top of a rock. Why not? We're doing a lot of cliffs today. So let me go ahead. And let's just do it with trees, just right quick. So let me go ahead. I'm going to add some trees right here. Tree number 1, some cute little tree right here. Tree number 2. And let me tell you, like, there's a massive, if you've ever tried to draw a bunch of trees, like, that are like, or I should say a forest, it's a real pain in the butt. And we'll cover exactly how to draw things like that, like when there's a whole bunch of the same object duplicated a bunch of times, the easiest way to draw those things. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And a lot of it has to do with lighting and making the right decision so you don't spend 40 hours painting each individual stroke of the object, in this case trees. So we have trees, 3 of the same sizes, pretty simple, okay? Let's try the same thing again over here. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead, draw my little rock over here. Okay, and let's just say that we have a gigantic tree right here, right in the middle, gigantic oak tree showing up. I don't actually know what an oak tree looks like without a reference, but we'll just make this a fancy tree with a gigantic hole in it. Gonna add these little branches showing up right here. Gonna add some roots going on over here. Nice little tree. I feel like I'm abusing these guys over here. I'm not really giving too much love to them or doing anything too fancy with them. Anyways, let's keep going. And just by doing this, let's go ahead. We have the big tree. One thing I'd like to mention is that when you're drawing leaves or any kind of big chunks, you want to draw them, or leaves or any kind of object that's duplicated this many times, like leaves or hair strands, my 2 examples that come to mind. You usually want to draw them in big chunks. It makes life a lot easier, and they tend to come in chunks, okay? Same thing with hair, which we'll talk about later. Hair you really want to draw in chunks. So let's go ahead. We have tree number 1, not bad. Now we'll have tree number 2, which is a little bit smaller. It's a medium version of the same kind of tree, and it's like, this looks more like a tiny planet than anything else actually. Anyways, let's go ahead. And we have a little tree right here, and we can have a medium-sized tree showing up right here. Also an oak, no problem. And also a tree right there. So yeah, as you can tell, we have the big one, the one that's slightly less big, and the one that's much smaller. We could even go even smaller than this. We could have a little tree back here. And as you can tell, there's a massive amount, or a huge difference between drawing like this and drawing like this. So whenever you're drawing trees or any kind of object where there's a lot of them in a scene, be sure to vary their sizes. It makes your life a lot easier. Okay? So that's it for this time's lesson. So I'll see you next one.